Isaiah 54. It's just so many different angles. The Lord has really been giving me some insight through the scriptures. I've had it in times past, but it's just totally different now. I think as you grow up and you act responsibly with the revelation He's given you, He has a tendency to give you more. To him that has, more shall be given. I appreciate that. And we started off this teaching. This is, I think this is the second installment. Am I right? Second installment of Enlarge, the place of your tent. And I believe last week we started talking about Enlarge. Where we left off was on Enlarge, the place of your tent. But I don't know if I neglected. I listened to a little bit of the teaching from last week, and I think I neglected to make a contrast, especially in the first verse. I think I did talk about the barrenness, and there's a language that's locked up in us, and that every movement that's in the earth, whenever God's getting ready to restore anything or build anything of significance, it's always a sound. You know, the church was born by sound. You know that, right? It was a sound as of a rushing mighty wind that came from heaven. So sound should be akin to the expansion of the kingdom or the inauguration of a new season. So we need sound. And that's why we talked about that, the singing and the crying aloud and the breaking forth and the birthing that it takes place to begin to travail with child. And truly the church is travailing with child. Am I right? There's a particular thing. There are some sectors in the church that they have what's the word? A fixation with being a bride. You know, in the '90s, especially, the Harper Bowl came out. Everybody said, "I'm the bride of the Christ." You know, and that is important. Being a bride and becoming a bride. Because we understand that it's connected to covenant and being one with the lover of our soul. Jesus Christ is our husband, so we know that. But then there's something to be conceived out of that intimacy, and that is the travail of we've been travailing with child, or we have some expectations of some things that need to be birthed into the church. And we know that that child that's to be travailed, or we're supposed to travail with the child. We know what that child is, am I right? The son, yeah, son. Perfect man, the one that Paul wrote about. Talked about the perfect man or the mature man. In fact, Revelation 21:6 talks about that. It's not the bride that's coming down out of the heaven that's going to inherit all things. It's the son that's going to inherit all things. And that's my goal, that's my aim, is to become full-blooded son. I know I'm a tech now, and I know I went through the brephos, nephos, and all those other different stages of development. And I know I'm a Julio son, but I'm maturing even in that. So I can begin to partake of my father's characteristics. But in this text, it said there's two dichotomies, there's two different sets. It's the children of the desolate, and there's the children of the married wife. And I don't know if I made mention that the children of the desolate was what? The Gentiles. Oh, I did. I didn't know if I did. I'm sweating. You see I'm sweating, making sure. Yeah, the Gentiles, those that did not know God, those that was outside the covenant. That's why the analogy is the married wife, which was natural Israel, because, you know, he was their husband. God, Jehovah, was the husband to that natural Israel, or in covenant relationship. That's all it means to be in a covenant relationship with God. And that's why you have the contrast, yeah, we did say that, the contrast between Jew and Gentile. The wall and the ordinance that was against us in Ephesians 1:11-18 has been taken out of the way, and we have access to the Father by one Spirit. So now the children of the desolate are no longer, because the fulfillment of it was being joined to Jesus, to one husband. I mean, there's one husband. And Jesus is the husband that all of us have partook of. All of us has partook of him. Amen? Because they are in him, we're in him. one big happy family, household of faith. Got that? That's powerful. That's powerful to me. Then we talked about verse 2, I believe. Let's go ahead and read it. The first 3 verses in Isaiah 54. Isaiah 54. Yeah.
Sing, O barren, thou that didst not bear. Break forth into singing and cry aloud, thou that didst not travail with child. For more are the children of the desolate than the children of the married wife, saith the Lord.
I just got something else, but I'm going to leave that alone. 2.
Enlarge the place of thy tent.
Enlarge the place of thy tent.
And let them stretch forth the curtains of thine habitations.
Underline both of those. The enlarge the place of thy tent, let them, or just put stretch forth the curtains of thine habitation.
Spare not, lengthen thy cords.
Lengthen thy cords, underline that.
And strengthen thy stakes.
And strengthen thy stakes. All of them are prophetic pictures of the church. All of those are the prophetic pictures of the church. Almost similar to, all my cords are broken. Real close to that particular teaching. Not necessarily the teaching, but there are some characteristics that's connected to that teaching, to that series. But then there are some things in here that's not as thorough as all my cords. But on last week we talked about that the enlarge the place of our tent is an increased capacity and an empowered reality to function as kingdom believers. Remember we said that? So it is, I'll say it again, an increased capacity and empowered reality to function as kingdom believers. And I told you there's a thing they call the Targum, which is something, it's an oral tradition that they got when they came out of Babylon, which has been legitimized, even though it's not concluded in the Bible, is that term, enlarge the places of my tent, is simply multiply the people of thy camp and strengthen the governors. Ain't that something? I mean, we're governors, rulers. So it said, enlarge the place of my tent. Now, the word tent is synonymous with the very structure that Moses built. Am I right? I don't know if anybody followed up the study, but the tent that he built, the tabernacle of Moses, was actually a tent too. And it's the same Hebrew word. And last week we talked about we're not looking for a physical structure as Moses did. God is not reverting back to that old system. He's a progressive God. Therefore, we concluded when we went to John 14 and we looked at the prayer that Jesus started out of 14, 15, 16, 17, talking about the inclusion of all those that would believe in his name. And that inclusion brought, formed the family or the Father's house. Remember we talked about the Father's house? And we said that the Father's house, let me just read it in verse 1. It said, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. I don't know if I mentioned this last night. I think I just went straight to mansions. The place he prepared for you is not heaven. The place he prepared for us to be in union with him. That's why he said, where I am, you may be also. So it's not talking about heaven. Heaven always existed. You don't have to prepare heaven.
Right.
Get what I'm saying? So the place that we had in him, in heaven.
Yes.
You got it? So the Father's house is a body of believers, right? We are the Father's house. We are the composition of a new heavenly entity. And that means he's taking up residence in a people. Not necessarily in a location. Not even fully in a dimension called heaven. Heaven is a dimension. It's a place. You don't have to die to go there. It's here all the time. We just got to know how to engage it. And the best way to engage it is to be educated concerning its reality and then allow the faith to be stirred in us so we can tap into it. Amen. But it's we said that we're actually a room in the Father's house. This house alone is not the Father's house. Churches all across the globe comprises the Father's house. So every mystical body that has attested or affirmed to the name of Jesus Christ is to be engrafted into that body. Got it? So us as a whole, as in a corporate sense, have become the Father's house. Amen? And I said that verse 3, if I go to prepare a place for you, I'll come again and receive you into, not unto myself, that where I am, you may be also. I made a statement. It's not a future reality. It's right now, living and breathing in this physical body. He has prepared a place for us, and we got to understand that place is prepared for us. We don't have to die to go to it. It's a dimension. Remember John 3:13 that talks about how the Son of Man was in heaven, but yet on the earth. Go John 3 real quick. We kind of miss over, or gloss over, glossalia. Remember that, Apostle Burgess? Glossalia. Bless his soul. John 3:13 says, no man has ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, what did it say, those last 4 words? Which is in heaven. I mean, he wasn't on heaven. He wasn't in heaven at the time. He was on the earth. He was talking to Nicodemus. Nicodemus wasn't in heaven. He was talking about a dimension. We thought it was a location. He was talking about a dimension. And I don't have time tonight to talk about that. It's a thin veil, but anyhow. So he didn't say where he would be in the future. He wanted them to be in a living relationship, in the same relationship of unity and intimacy he had with the Father. That's what he came to do. To bring them in the same relationship that he had when he walked in the earth. So we were a continuation of that relationship. And that is our prepared place. While we're still living on the planet Earth, our prepared place is to come into complete union with him. No longer separated. No longer living independent of the Spirit. No longer alienated from the life of God. No longer alienated from the life of God, because we've been sealed in our spirit to the day of redemption. Then we kicked it up another notch. That was the mystical, theological way. We found out that we're in the Father's house, all of us. There's no stepchildren. Everybody's in the Father's house. There's enough room for everybody. Come on, I don't have to kick against you. You don't have to kick against me. He's made room for us. He's prepared a place for us. So there's no envy. There's no jealousy. There's no big you and little I. None of that stuff in the Father's house.